Hey everyone, so it's Hearth and welcome back to my channel. Recently I had the opportunity to go to Glastonbury, and you know I ended up going into all of the bookshops and all of the small businesses, and I might have come away with a few things. And by a few things I mean, I did get a bit of homeware, I stocked up on a few things for my magical practice, and I came away with a giant stack of books. And so today I wanted to show you the things that I purchased so that you might be inspired within your own magical practice, for the books that you might want to add into your collection, or the small businesses and creators that you might want to support if you also want to expand your magical collection. So with that being said, let's get into the video. As always, I want to reiterate that you do not need a massive library of books or a collection of magical items to be a successful practitioner. Witchcraft is not about the books that you own, it's not about the things that you have, it is about you, your connection to the energy, and your practice. I am, however, very, very passionate about reading witchcraft books. I love supporting authors, and also this is my passion and my job. And because of that, I do have a much larger library than the average practitioner would necessarily need. If you've got a massive collection, I'm sure you're passionate about books just like me, but if you don't have a massive collection, that doesn't make you any less of a practitioner. I am also not affiliated with any of the shops, authors, or well, anything else in this video. These are things that I purchased with my own money that I'm really passionate about, and I thought that some of you might want to see the things that I got to perhaps inspire your own collections. The links to the different books as well as the small businesses are in the description box, so if you want to check them out and support them, that's where all the information will be. Surprisingly, we're not starting this video with books, we're actually starting it with some homeware. There is a really lovely new store to Glastonbury called Dandelion Dreams, and they are essentially an artist collective, where different shelving space is rented out to artists so they can display and sell their work. And the lovely gentleman that I spoke to in there said that they only opened last year, and I completely missed them on my previous visit, so this time I went in and immediately spotted these little ceramic mushrooms. I'm so excited about these. I saw them, and the moment I laid my eyes on them, I knew I couldn't leave without getting at least one. And so obviously I ended up coming away with two, because it would feel lonely if I only bought one of them. It's only fair. Now, the artist that does these, I believe, is called the Punky Enclave Limited. I will double check that though and leave their information down in the description box. But they had an entire shelf that was just full of rainbow coloured mushrooms. I had to go for the classic red and white, obviously. I feel like that's appropriate for me and my aesthetic. But they had everything from orange and yellow to green, purple, pink. Every colour you could think of, they had in different sizes. So they had small, medium, which are this size, and then they had large ones as well, and they had them in different shapes, and I just completely fell in love with them. This shop is absolutely stunning. You have everything from woven crafts to actual moon dust jewellery, which was just incredible, and everything in between. They had bone jewellery, which I was so tempted to get, but as I'd already spent quite a lot of my budget on books, I ended up just getting these, and I'm really hoping that I'm either going to add them into the backs of my videos or they're going to go on my altar spaces. They are so beautifully done, so they're all shiny glaze except for the dots on the top, they're matte, and underneath, I'm not sure you can see, but they have the actual detail of the underside of the mushrooms, the little gills, and they are slightly different. Each one of them is entirely unique. This has the same gills underneath, but it's just a little bit slimmer than this one is, and I thought that they just looked beautiful together. I'll be honest, I'm also a sucker for art and ceramics, especially ceramics, because it was something that I did in high school and fell in love with. If you are like me and you are interested in ceramics and you haven't seen it already, check out the Great British Pottery Throwdown. If you're in America, you've probably already heard of the Great British Bake Off. It's essentially the same concept, but for pottery instead of cakes and desserts, and so I'm a sucker for ceramics, and I had to get these, and all of the information will be linked in the description box. I now have to put these somewhere safe where I'm not going to break them because I'm clumsy as hell, and I will. So we're going to put them on this table, and we're going to hope that I don't miraculously managed to knock them off. While I was away, I didn't just go to Glastonbury. I actually went to Oxford and the Cotswolds. Oxford is absolutely my favourite city. It is amazing there. But while I was in the Cotswolds, we did see a lot of historical locations, a lot of castles, and a lot of places associated with Tudor England, which is one of my favourite time periods. However, I wasn't expecting to find a book on poisonous plants, and I thought I would mention this for anyone who's also interested in the subject. We went to a castle. I cannot remember the name of it. I will put it on the screen if I can remember. And while I was in the gift shop, I spotted this. This is called Poisonous Plants in Great Britain by Fredrick Gillam. Now, this is a book series that I do already have some of within my collection, and they are essentially shallow dives into a particular topic. They're great if it's a subject that you're curious about, but you don't want something that's too intense. They're also really good as gifts, and they're also pretty affordable compared to a lot of the books in my collection. Now, this isn't necessarily associated with witchcraft, but I did want to mention it because a lot of practitioners, myself included, are just generally interested in the natural world. And also, look at that writing. It's properly holographic, which I can definitely appreciate. So there isn't much information on the back of this book, but I have started reading it and it's really interesting. So it says the following: Would you lick your fingers after picking a lily of the valley? Where are the haunts of Satan's Boletus and the destroying angel? Did no one ever warn you about fair fool's parsley? Hiding in the beautiful meadows and woods of Great Britain are some poisonous plants, about which every sensible rambler, parent and picnicker should be properly informed. Let Fredrick Gillam be your guide. That's literally all it says on the back of it, but inside you have information and illustrations of loads of different poisonous plants. So this one in particular is foxglove. You also have thorn apple, black nightshade, and so you have the illustrations on one side and the information on the other, and I just really like the way that this is laid out. You also have deadly nightshade in here. I find these kind of books really interesting, and they are a lot more accessible than some of the more intricate books that I might have in my collection. It's the kind of book where you could just sit down and casually read it, and you don't feel like you've got to brace yourself for a 6-7 hour read, or a 6-7 day or week read in some cases. It's very small, it's very interesting, and I thought some of you might appreciate this one. I already am halfway through it. I think I read half of it the night that I got it, and it's just a really intriguing book. So there's that one. I then, of course, ended up in Glastonbury, where there are primarily 3 bookshops. There are other shops that do sell books as well, but I will typically stick to the main 3, being Labyrinth Books, which is at the very top of the high street, the Hollow Hills, which used to be the Speaking Tree, which is kind of halfway down, and then just below that you have Courtyard Books, which is, as always, my personal favourite. But this time I mostly went to the Hollow Hills and Courtyard Books. And we're going to start in the Hollow Hills, because this is where you get the majority of the mainstream witchcraft books. And I don't mean that in a derogatory way. I simply mean that this is the place where you're going to get the newly published books. You're going to get a lot of new books that are easily accessible, they are affordable, and they're the kind of things that the average magical practitioner is going to be interested in. They have such a wide range of books, and I did come away with 5 from the Hollow Hills. Now, some of these books are perhaps a little bit niche in their topic, so they're not going to be for everyone, but some of you might find them really interesting. So up first, we have Lughnasadh. Now, this is part of the Llewellyn Sabbat Essentials collection, and it's a series of books. Each one is on a different Sabbat within the Wheel of the Year. Now, I have one of these in my collection already, that being Yule, and they're really good for inspiration of the things and spells and rituals that you can carry out during the Sabbat season. And so I ended up getting another one to add to my collection. I'm hoping that by the end of my collection growth, I'm not really sure where I was going with that, I will end up with the entire collection, because they're really good for inspiration, especially if you're not necessarily in the right headspace for the Sabbat. If you just can't get into the seasonal energy, these can be great for inspiring your practice a little bit further. So this one reads as follows. Lughnasadh, also known as Lammas, is the start of the harvest season, marking the point where the first fruit of the land has ripened. This guide to Lughnasadh shows you how to perform rituals and work magic around the gratitude we feel for plans that have come to fruition and explore themes of fertility, protection, and reflection. It includes rituals, recipes, lore, spells, divination crafts, correspondences, invocations, prayers, and meditations. Llewellyn's Sabbath Essentials explores the old and new ways of celebrating the seasonal rites that are the cornerstones of the witch's year. Now, I do think it's important to note here that the Wheel of the Year as we see it today is a modern adaptation, and many of the different Sabbats that we see come from different locations, specifically around Western Europe. And so a lot of the workings in this book do come from these modern adaptations on older traditions, and they are things that you can further adapt into your own magical practice. Now, as mentioned there, it covers a lot of different things, and there are also some beautiful illustrations in here. I just love a book with pictures. I don't know what it is. Some people would say that's childish, but I just love a really pretty picture, and so I can always appreciate it. In here, though, they are fairly honest about the origins of the workings. So you have different sections. You have the introduction, old ways, new ways, spells and divination, recipes and crafts, prayers and invocations, rituals of celebration, correspondences, which is really useful, especially if you are just getting started. You then also have a bibliography and a further reading section, which I always really appreciate. So just an example of the kind of things that are in there, you have a calm down candle spell. You also have a herbal spell for safeguarding success, water scrying divination to predict success. You also have loads of little illustrations in here, which I do think are particularly useful for really grounding it into a physical practice. A lot of people really struggle with visualizing and taking words and adding them into a physical sense, and so I can always appreciate when there are pictures involved. Up next, we've got a book that's actually been published by the Royal Botanical Gardens, as in Kew Gardens, which I was never expecting to add into my collection. This is The Witch's Garden. Now, they actually have a series of these books. They are all beautifully designed. Whoever their artist is needs a raise, because this is gorgeous, and it continues inside as well. Like, look how vibrant that is. That's incredible. It is just really, really beautifully designed. It's a very aesthetically pleasing book, which is usually a red flag to me, but this one actually looks decent. So this is described as being The Witch's Garden, Plants in Folklore, Magic and Traditional Medicine by Sandra Lawrence. And it is beautiful, but it also sounds very, very interesting. Witch's Garden describes over 50 of the world's most powerful magical plants and their uses, mythical and proven. From the screaming mandrake to calming St. John's wort, the history of these estoic species is often as dark and elusive as the art of herbalism itself, including tales of remedies for everything from bad weather and broken hearts to protection from evil and the invocation of immortality. The book features exquisite botanical illustrations and fascinating specimens held within the archives of the Royal Botanic Gardens, Kew, while archival images depicting occult practices evoke the bewitching nature of these mysterious species. Does that not sound good? That sounds good to me. And inside, you do have these beautiful illustrations. They are just gorgeous, and these are things that we would normally never be able to see. It covers a whole range of different species, so let's just have a look at some of the ones that we have here. So we have blackberry, one of my favourite plants to work with actually. Lilies, which are very closely associated with death and are very magical in themselves. You have fennel. And each section has a range of history as well as illustrations, rose, and I'm really, really interested in this book. It's one where, oh look, they're my little mushrooms. It's one of those books where I would never normally have looked into it. It's something that really fascinates me as a topic, but if you'd have shown me this book and I hadn't had the chance to read the information on it myself, I'd have gone, oh, it's a coffee table book, it's really beautiful, but it's not all that practical. However, as someone who's interested in learning about folk practices and historical practices and beliefs, This one is really interesting to me. They also have one on trees as well as mushrooms and fungi, I think. So I think the tree one is green and the mushroom one is pink, if you're interested in those subjects as well. I will reiterate here as well that I've not read any of these yet, so do not take this as me recommending the books because I've read them. These are simply the books that I've purchased, and I'm not sure if I'm going to like them or not, so I will keep you updated as to what I like and what I don't. And they will be added to my very, very extensive to-be-read pile. I think I need to stop buying books and start reading them because I'm running out of space and I keep getting new books. Oops. Next up, we've got a book that some of you are going to be really interested in and some of you are not really going to care about, and that is The Alchemist's Handbook. Now, this is by Frater Albertus, or Frater Albertus. I'm not really sure which. I'm so sorry. I'm really bad at pronouncing names. But this one is a new topic to me. I've never really looked into alchemy and I wanted to learn more about it. And so when I saw this, I had to get it. Now, this one reads as follows. The Alchemist's Handbook has long been an essential contribution to the study of alchemy since its first publication in 1960. It still stands as a groundbreaking work, presenting in clear, concise language a practical manual of working knowledge that was formally handed down under oath of secrecy. The scope of alchemical work is to provide both a means to synthesize all other sciences and the necessary training of the intellectual and spiritual faculties. And so we're going to give it a go. I have never looked into anything like this before, but alchemy has always been kind of an interesting blend for me. I have a background in the sciences, more specifically natural sciences, but science in general fascinates me. And alchemy is very much this bridge topic between science and occultism. It very much walks that line where, depending on which aspect you're looking at, it could really be either side of it. And so I want to dive into this. It covers the basic fundamental principles of alchemy, a guide to the formation of an inexpensive home laboratory with illustrations of the necessary equipment, and step-by-step instructions for the work of the lesser circulation, the alchemical transformation within the plant kingdom. Now, this might be one that I just look into and don't do anything with. This might be one that I look into and end up really deep diving into it. I'm not sure yet. We're gonna have to see. I'm excited, and it's also not a massive read. Like, this is a very comfortable read for me. It's that kind of size of book where I'm like, okay, this isn't overwhelming, because some of the books later on are a little overwhelming, I will be honest. Next up, we have Demons and Spirits of the Land by, I'm going to butcher the name again. Every time it comes up in a video, I get it wrong. Claude Lecourteau. I'm so sorry, I always say it wrong. But this one is all about, you guessed it, demons and spirits of the land. And I wasn't really that interested in it until I read the information and was like, okay, this is right up my alley. I'm gonna have to get it. So this one reads as follows. Our pagan ancestors knew that every forest has brownies and fairies, every spring its lady, and every river malevolent beings in its depths. They told tales of giants in the hills, dragons in the lakes, marshes swarmed with will-o-wisps, and demons and wild folk in the mountains who enjoyed causing landslides, avalanches, and floods. They both feared and respected these entities, knowing the importance of appeasing them for safe travel and a prosperous homestead. Exploring medieval stories, folk traditions, spiritual place names, and pagan rituals of home building and site selection, Claude Lecourteau reveals the multitude of spirits and entities that once inhabited the land before modern civilization repressed them into solitude, impenetrable forests, and inaccessible mountains. He explains how, to our ancestors, enclosing a space was a sacred act. Specific rites had to be performed to negotiate with the land spirits and ensure proper placement and protection of a new building. These land spirits often became the household spirit, taking up residence in a new building in exchange for permission to build on their territory. Lecourteau explores Arthurian legends, folk tales, and mythology for evidence of the untamed spirits of the wilderness, such as giants, dragons, and demons, and examines the rites and ceremonies used to gain their goodwill. Letter 2 reveals how, despite outright church suppression, belief in these spirits carried through to modern times and was a primary influence on architecture, an influence still visible in today's buildings. The author also shows how our ancestors' concern for respecting nature is increasingly relevant in today's world. You can see why I like the sound of this book, right? So it's another one that isn't overwhelming, so I'm really looking forward to giving this a read because I also love working with land spirits and I want to learn more about the practices that people historically have used to connect with them. That's not to say that everything in this book is going to be 100% accurate or workable today, but it is something that I would like to learn more about so that I can adapt it into my own practice. And then the last one I got from the Hollow Hills is this one. This is all about the Voynich Manuscript. Now, this is a topic that has fascinated me for a long time. If you don't know anything about the Voynich Manuscript, I honestly should probably make a video on it. It's fascinating. It's a manuscript whose information is completely untranslatable. We don't know what it's about, we don't know what language it's in, and it's believed to be in code that we still haven't broken yet. And so this book, the Voynich Manuscript, the mysterious code that has defied interpretation for centuries, was one where as soon as I saw it, I picked it up and was like, I have to get it, because I've been so fascinated by this subject. And if you have ever read A Discovery of Witches, this manuscript is also mentioned in there as well. So it's kind of a crossover between fictional witchcraft series and also the real world. And I am so excited to get into this. You've got no idea. I've been waiting to film this video so that I can then just start reading these. And this one I think is going to be my first read because how could it not be? This one reads as follows. Since its discovery by Wilfrid Voynich in an Italian monastery in 1912, the Voynich manuscript has baffled scholars and cryptanalysts. That's a word I've never said out loud before, with its unidentifiable script and bizarre illustrations. Written in an unknown language or an as yet undecipherable code, this medieval manuscript contains hundreds of illustrations of unknown plants, cosmological charts, and inexplicable scenes of naked nymphs bathing in a green liquid that some interpret as a symbolic depiction of human reproduction and the joining of the soul with the body. Jerry Kennedy and Rob Churchill explore the mystery surrounding the Voynich manuscript, exploring the many existing theories about the possible authors of this work and the information it may contain. They trace the speculative history of the manuscript and reveal those who may be connected to it, including Roger Bacon, John Dee, and Edward Kelly. With the possibility that it may be a lost alchemical text or other historic work, this manuscript remains one of the most intriguing yet enigmatic documents ever to have come to light. So this is a manuscript that has fascinated me for years, and just here is an example of some of the illustrations from this manuscript. We know that the manuscript is old, or at least I believe the parchment that the manuscript is written on is old. We just don't know that much about where it came from, who wrote it, what it even is. There's a range of different illustrations in there that do make it look like alchemical texts, as this is mentioned, but it doesn't seem to match really anything that we already have. And so I'm really excited to read this. It's definitely a niche read. It's not going to be for everyone, but I'm excited and I might start this later. Because I need inspiration. I need a book that I'm really excited about. And while I'm excited about all of these books, this is the one that I'm so excited about reading. I then went to Sons of Asgard, and I didn't get a massive range of things this time. I just got the things I really needed to replenish within my collection. So I got a range of their blended synergy oils. These are all of their tree oils, which I use a lot in my practice. I got some that I have essentially used up, including hawthorn. This is one that I use a lot, but I also got ivy, heather, and gorse, as well as an extra hawthorn because I use this one a lot. I use these all the time in my magical practice, and so I tend to have to keep buying restocks of them. So you'll often see these in almost every video where I come back from Glastonbury because I use a lot of them. And then while I was there, I did get an oil that I don't normally get. I usually make my own oils, but this year I haven't really had time to make a lether oil, and so I got one of their lether oils, and it smells so good. Just crack this one open. Oh my goodness, it smells amazing. So I got this for a lot of my Letha celebrations this year. And so while I usually do my own oils, this year has completely passed me by. I'm so far behind on everything I wanted to get done. And so this one was a really good option for me. So I'm looking forward to adding this into my celebrations. Now I have to put these somewhere where I'm not going to knock them over. I will inevitably knock them over anyway because it is me. And that's how this is going to work. Now we're on to the main event. I went into Courtyard Books and I knew exactly what I went in for. There were a few things that I saw on their website, and I also knew that they carry a stock of Troy Book hardbacks. And if you've seen one of my previous videos where I did a Troy Book haul, you will know that I collect the Troy Book hardbacks, especially the foiled ones. And so I did go in knowing that I was going to come away with a lot of books. So brace yourself, there are a lot of Troy Book hardbacks in this. It's not going to be for everyone, but if you do like book collections like me, you're probably going to appreciate a lot of these. Not all of them are Troy Books, however, including the first one, which is this. Look how beautiful that is. It's bright orange. It's not my usual colour scheme, but you have this half of a cat on this side, and the other half is on this side. That's amazing. I love creative book covers like this. And also, it's foiled. We know that I'm going to love it because it's foiled. Now, this is called Witches and Apparitions by Glanville. It says it just down the side here. And this one immediately caught my attention. This book in particular is really interesting because it's actually a republication of a much older work. So what we see here is actually a book that's published by Holy Thorn Press, which is a publisher I've never heard of before, but I'm definitely going to look into now because this is just fascinating. The information on this one goes as follows. Joseph Glanville's Saduc. Oh, it's Latin. Oh my goodness, you know that I'm bad at this. I did Latin too. That's what makes this worse. I studied Latin for like 9 years and I still suck at it. Some people just aren't good at languages and I am one of those people. Saducismus. Triumphatus. Seducimus Triumphatus. I'm never going to remember that. Anyway, Joseph Glanville's Seducismus Triumphatus, updated and revised. One of the most important texts concerning witchcraft and the paranormal in 17th century Europe. Ghosts, hauntings, witches, enchanted objects, poltergeist phenomena are featured. Witch trials from Somerset, Scotland, Ireland, and Sweden are described in detail, using contemporary accounts from witnesses and the accused. Paranormal activity, including the famous Drummer of Tedworth, are also described in vivid, almost journalistic language. There are ghosts, poltergeists, murder victims seeking post-mortem justice, a knocking banshee foretelling death, and a demonic stalker, among others. There is a lengthy introduction which explains the historical and philosophical background of the work. Now, I do believe that this book was limited in copies, so there were 2 available in Courtyard Books. I ended up getting number 196 out of 200, which I'm so happy about. This is my favourite kind of book, honestly. I have a range of books that are similar in nature because I'm fascinated by historical accounts of hauntings, witches, apparitions, poltergeists, spirits, anything like that. I am fascinated by it. And so this is one where as soon as I saw it, I knew I had to get it. I'm not sure if it's available in any other edition or if this is the only one, like the only style that it's available in. But if you can get hold of it, it could be interesting if you are like me and you like this kind of topic. Next up, we have a book that I mentioned in my previous live stream, and that is this one. It's so cute. It's really small. This is by Troy Books, and it is The Long Hidden Friend by John George Homan. And it is one of their grimoire series, I believe. I'll have to double check that. And it is introduced and edited by Gemma Gary, and also the illustrations, I believe, are Gemma Gary as well. So just a little look inside. We've got the classic Gemma Gary imagery, which I do really enjoy. Now, this one is available in a paperback, so it's not only available in the hardbacks. They are also coming out, I believe, let me just double check. Yeah, they are coming out with a new version of the hardback, if that's something that you are interested in, but it is available in a paperback. And I believe all of the Troy books that we're going to be talking about today are also available in a paperback version, which is a lot more affordable. So if you're not interested in hardbacks, you just want the information in the book, they're all available as paperbacks. The information on this one, however, goes as follows. The Long-Hidden Friend first appeared in 1820 in German. It is a fascinating collection of traditional European folk magical formulas for a wide range of spells, simple rituals, charms, talismans, bindings, prayers, benedictions, magical folk healing, recipes and remedies for humans and animals, as well as various non-magical tips for matters of rural and domestic life. In editing this edition for Troy Books, Gemma Gary has arranged the formerly scattered and unstructured content into some order, organising the practices into the categories of curative arts, animal arts, arts against evildoers, protective arts, and propitious arts. This final chapter detailing a diverse collection of magical and non-magical practices for general success, good fortune, safety, and well-being in a number of areas including divination, games, gambling, hunting, and legal matters. I am, as mentioned, a sucker for these kind of books. Things that are based off folk tradition or a collection of things that have been used throughout history. You don't have to use them as is, you can simply take them as inspiration, adapt them into your own practice, or simply enjoy the content for what it is, a fascinating small piece of history that we can read and enjoy as a modern practitioner. And so this was one that I started almost immediately. Already I really enjoy it, so hopefully I can update everyone soon. The next book is one that I spotted on the Courtyard Books website, and the moment I did, I knew I would have to get hold of it. It's a really hard book to find, and those of you who know it will know exactly what I mean. It is the Roebuck in the Thicket. This is a book that comes so highly recommended to me. I've been searching for a copy of it for so many years, and I just had to get hold of it. A lot of people have also told me that I needed to recommend it in my traditional witchcraft book series, but the reality is, this is out of print. It's not accessible for a lot of people, and so I don't typically like recommending books that aren't available, or at least available at a reasonable price. But this one reads as follows. Robert Cochrane was one of the most fascinating and enigmatic figures in the history of modern witchcraft revival. He claimed a family witchcraft tradition going back to the 17th century, and also claimed that he had been taught the craft by a family member. He was in contact with leading occult figures in the 60s, such as Bill Gray, and claimed links with a number of hereditary groups in the UK. Describing himself, Cochrane wrote, "I come from the country of the oak, ash and thorn. I describe myself as a peller, a Cornish term for rural healers. I am a member of the clan of Tubal Cain. This book contains information about Robert Cochrane, his coven, the clan of Tubal Cain, their rituals, teachings and beliefs, and his workings written by himself to Evan John Jones, with additional writings by Evan John Jones and edited by Michael Howard. The articles in this book form a fascinating overview of a unique form of traditional witchcraft." And so I'm really excited about this. And any information that I can share, I will try to do that, because books like this are fascinating, but they aren't accessible to many people. And so if I can share information, I'm going to try and do that as best as I can. Next up, we have this beautiful book. This is Horns of the Moon, Techniques in Traditional Magical Arts by Kerry Wisner. And look how gorgeous it is. It's green. I'm such a sucker for green. You might have noticed. Normally I'd be wearing green, actually. Today I kind of went rogue with the red and black, but this is just gorgeous. This doesn't, however, describe what the book is about, so let's talk about that. Following on from the Willow Path, Witchcraft, Hermetics, and the Hidden Wisdom of the Magical Arts, we present to you here the Horns of the Moon, Techniques in Traditional Magical Arts. By hare and hound, by fish and otter, by grain that falls for the hen to devour, with dragons red and white, we climb the mountain in the night. So begins the enchantment, drawing the witch into realms seldom experienced by most people. Horns of the Moon is the second book in the trilogy, describing techniques in traditional magical arts, procedures designed to bring one in contact with other worlds not normally perceived, and with the beings who inhabit these. Horns of the Moon presents detailed instructions and ritual practices that continue the training of the traditional witch, beginning with the differences between the natural witch compared to those who need to cultivate their abilities. We examine the importance of training, working solo, as well as with others, to learn the art of merging and becoming. Beyond, this book discusses travelling in spirit, sending forth the fetch, and how to enter different realms and realities at will, how to interact with the other world, beings and spirits tied to one's locale, cycles of time weaving in patterns of power that influence magical practices, including the 28 Ladies of the Moon, Bask and Streger moon water, as well as the witch's condenser from traditional sources, the use of sound, enchantments, and words of power in the art, ritual possession as the mare in traditional witchcraft, and much more. Drawing from traditional witchcraft, hermetics, and ancient Egyptian sources, Horns of the Moon represents a blend of techniques in use today as a practical system in the magical arts. Now, I do already have the Willow Path, which is the first in this series, and so this one to me just seemed really interesting, and it's one of the Troy standard hardbacks with the foiling, therefore I found it, I had to add it to my collection, I'm very excited to give it a read. It's one of those where I might not include any of the workings within my own practice. It's simply something I'm fascinated to learn just a little bit more about. Another Troy books, this is Runa. And this one, despite being one of the standard hardbacks, isn't actually foiled, but I think it looks really, really good, and I match. I feel like today's video is literally just me matching with this book. But this is Runa, The Wisdom of the Runes by A.D. Mercer. And this is one I've had on my wish list or want list for a long time, and I finally got around to purchasing it. It's also not massive, which makes it way more manageable compared to some of them in this video. The information on this one goes as follows. Runa, Wisdom of the Runes, presents what is, without doubt, the most misunderstood and probably the most cynically abused set of runes in the history of runology. The Armanan runes have been ignored by scholars, abused by right-wing extremists, and largely forgotten by students of the occult. Nevertheless, the Armanan runes are in many ways the quintessential Estoic rune, originally conceived of by the 19th century German mystic Guido von List. The Armanan runes offer us the most stoically charged Firthark ever encountered. As well as exploring their true history, Runa discusses the deeper significance of the Armanan runes with the intention of returning the runes to their rightful place as the zenith of true runic magic, as well as their true meaning as symbols of transformation, granting access into the deeper unconscious and what may lie beyond. Runa examines each rune in detail before embarking on a detailed exploration of the relationship between the Armanan runes and Yggdrasil, the Germanic and Nordic world tree directly linking the two. In this respect, Runa is a unique text, as it is the only text to directly link the two, exploring the importance of this connection, which cannot be overstated. Now, this is a topic that I have not really dived super heavily into myself, but it's a book that's always looked really interesting to me, and so it could be something to look into if you are also interested in this subject, because sadly, as is mentioned in that little bit of information there, the runes have been seriously abused over the years. They have been taken completely out of context, they have been pushed into situations and connected to certain groups of people that is awful, and it should be understood that that is not their original purpose. They have been taken, adapted, and squished into these groups where they are used for very harmful purposes, and that is not the origin of these symbols. And so I think it's really important that we are able to learn a little bit more about the real history of them, not just what is seen and used today by certain groups of people. I'm being very careful with my words here, but I'm sure that many of you will know exactly what I'm talking about. So this is one I'm excited to give a go. Not sure what it's going to be like, but it's small, which means it's really manageable for me. So yeah, I'm looking forward to this. The next book is one that many of you will immediately recognize. This is The Black Toad by Gemma Gary. I actually already have this in a paperback and I've really enjoyed it. And so when I had the opportunity to get it in their foil hardbacks, you know I had to. Do I have a problem? Maybe just a little one. But I mean, look how beautiful that is. It's just gorgeous. It's also another fairly small book. If you have the paperback or you've seen it, you'll know that it's a not particularly big book anyway, but it's jam-packed full of interesting information. The Black Toad explores potent examples of the folk ceremonial magical practices and witchcraft of the southwest of England, dealing especially with Devon and the author's homeland of Cornwall. Within the West Country, the popular belief in witchcraft and its attendant charms, magical practices and traditions continued to be observed and survived long after such ways had faded in most other parts of the British Isles. Described within The Black Toad is a collection of some of the fascinating magical practices and lore of the West Country's cunning folk and early modern witches, ways that have survived and evolved within the rarefied craft of the area's modern-day witchcraft practitioners of the old persuasion. As this book affirms, these ways of the old craft and cunning art include a belief in the working relationship with the spirit forces of the land, the fairy, animal and plant lore, as well as the magical use of psalms to cure and curse, the invocation of Christ and the power of the Holy Trinity. For those who are interested in learning about the old path as it is taught and practiced today by West Country witches, this book of practical magic and sorcery will be a revelation. As the late Cecil Williamson, founder of the Witchcraft Museum in Boscastle, North Cornwall, and a modern cunning man himself said, and Gemma Gary's excellent book proves, it still goes on today. And this is a really good book if you are interested in how folk traditions have adapted into the modern day. I think it's important to remember that folk practices are constantly changing and shifting. That's how they've survived. And so yes, there are aspects of Christian text and belief in this, because that's one of the only ways that these traditions would have survived and adapted as time went on. So this is not a true to history version of folk practice. This is the developed and shifted folk practice as it's gone through hundreds of years of changes and it's adapted to the times. And so this kind of book is just fascinating to me. I already have it in my collection. Now I have it in my collection twice. And yeah, really excited to give this one another read. All of these books are the exact same, by the way, in the paperback version. So you will have the same beautiful illustrations as we always get in Gemma Gary's works. And I'm just chuffed to have this. I'm so excited. Back again with more Gemma Gary, we have Silent as the Trees. This is one that I also already have in my collection as a paperback, and it is a really, really good book. But it's green. It's green and copper, which is honestly probably my favourite combination ever. And just look at how beautiful that is. That is amazing. I have wanted this in my collection in the hardback for a long time, and now I finally got it. I'm so excited. It's just beautiful and, generally speaking, just a really, really good book. In this one, there are also photographs, which are on beautiful shiny paper, and that really does make these books for me, because not only do you have the beautiful illustrations, but you also have a way of grounding the information into the physical world, because you have the photos that represent the items and the locations that are being discussed, which I think is really important. Not everyone finds it easy to visualize the items that are mentioned, and so by having those pictures, it can really help a lot of people. So, the information on this one goes as follows. Nurtured amidst the village... Okay. Nurtured amidst the village... That's a tongue twister. Silent as the Trees is a book exploring the old witchcraft, magical traditions and folklore nurtured amidst the village communities, hills, moors and ancient woods of Devonshire in southwest England. In this, her sixth book, Gemma Gary introduces Devon's witches and magical folk, examining their lives and their magic, from historical figures such as the White Witch, Corks of Exeter and Devonshire Toad Witches, an examination of the trials of the Bideford Witches or the Bidford Witches, I'm not sure which that is, to more modern practitioners such as the Cunning Man and witchcraft collector Cecil Williamson. Old stories in Devon tell of the often troublesome encounters between ordinary folk and the world of witchery. These encounters give valuable insights not only into the strange and fantastical beliefs surrounding witches, but also the traditional methods of beneficial magic and counter-cursing via the experiences of those who sought the aid of the white witches and conjurers to lift the maleficia of the Black Witch. Devon is a county particularly rich in folklore and mythology, in which we also often find the character of the witch and the heady presence of the black dog apparitions, the wild hunt, and the devil himself. Many such tales weave their way around the plentiful strange stones and haunting ancient sites of this most mysterious landscape. Within this book, Gemma Gary also guides us through the fascinating witch beliefs of the regions surrounding skin turning, the old witch art of bestial shape-shifting, as well as the tradition of the familiar spirit and the witch's methods for gaining spirit companions. Silent as the Trees is 2 books in one, for included within its pages is a black book of Devonshire magic, detailing an extensive collection of genuine Devonshire spells, charms, and magical rites. Within this collection, we find magical workings of power, spirit vision, cure charms for all manner of ailments and injuries, curse magic, protections and magical defense, love charms, good fortune, charms for animals, and traditional Devonshire toad magic. So yeah, you can see why I like this book, I'm hoping, because it's really good in the paperback, and I've got it in the hardback, and I'm very excited. The last of the Troy books that I purchased is this one, which is absolutely beautiful, and many of you will immediately recognise this on the front cover. It is a very traditional charm. This is The Sacred Magic of Abramelin the Mage, translated by S.L. MacGregor Mathers. And this is one of their grimoire series, at least I'm pretty certain that this is definitely one of their grimoire series, and I've been looking for this for ages in the hardback. Finally managed to get my hands on it. I'm very excited. And this is available in loads of other versions. So you can get this in a paperback, but you can also get it from other publishers as well. There's a wide variety out there because this is a much older work. The Sacred Magic of Abramelin the Mage is the 2nd edition Troy book series of classic grimoires, translated into English by occultist S.L. MacGregor Mathers from a French document in 1897. Whilst the text purports to be of 15th century origin, the earliest known versions of the manuscript, which are in German, date to the 17th and 18th centuries. The text tells the story of how Abraham of Worms encountered an Egyptian mage named Abramelin, from whom Abraham received the secrets of a powerful Kabbalistic magical system. It is this system and its secrets we... It is this system and its secrets we read. This system we read. It is this system and its secrets. It is this system and its secrets we read of as. That's a lot of words. It is this system and its secrets. It is this bloody hell, okay. Let's try this again. It is this system and its secrets we read. It is this system and its secrets we read of as Abraham passes his knowledge to his son Lamech, or Lamech, I think. The system revealed within the text consists of lengthy and elaborate rites and preparatory practices in order to gain the knowledge and conversation of one's guardian angel, via whom magical secrets will be revealed unto the practitioner. Via evocation of the 12 kings and dukes of hell, the practitioner will obtain a number of familiar spirits of aid to the operative magic encountered within the 3rd book of this text. As head of the Hermetic Order of the Golden Dawn at the time, Mathers's book of the sacred magic of Abramelin the Mage became very important and influential to the practices of the order, via which it was to have a profound influence upon the practices of Aleister Crowley. The operative magic of the book, which like the operative content of other popular grimoires, became incorporated into folk magical practices, is centered around 242 magic word square talismans. Via the use of these squares, the practitioner may gain an array of powers, many of which are those sought after within the folk magical and cunning arts, such as knowing the past and the future, the conjuration of various spirits and visions, weather magic, to gain treasures and wealth, to cure various maladies, to excite love or hatred, to discover thefts and to open locks. More dramatic powers may be granted by the squares and include the ability to fly or walk beneath the water, to revive dead bodies unto life, to transform men into beasts and beasts into men, to become invisible, and to raise magical armies. Now, obviously, this is a very curious book. It isn't like the others that we've already spoken of today. This is one of those where it's a translation of a piece of work and material that may or may not be real, but many people will use the Sator square to this day, which is what we see on the front cover here. This is a really, really popular square, and we also see these magical squares being commonly used through witchcraft practices. And so for me, this one was just a really interesting read, and I've wanted to get hold of it for a long time. It's very dense. It's not going to be for everyone, but it is one of those really curious books that I've been looking at for ages, and I figured now's about as good a time as ever. The last book in this video is one that I never ever expected to be able to find. I never expected to be able to get a copy for myself, and it is in pristine condition, which makes me so scared of damaging it. Some of you are going to recognize this for what it is instantly. Others, this might be new to you, but this is The Green Mysteries. I have been looking for this since it was released, which isn't that long ago actually, but it is no longer available, which makes this a really hard to find copy. And I am unbelievably excited to have it in my collection, and I am going to have to take such good care of it because I'm so scared of damaging it. This is The Green Mysteries, an occult herbarium by Daniel Schulke. And firstly, it's huge. This is next to my head. It is huge, it is very heavy, it is hardback with the beautiful illustration on the front. If I can show this. It is gorgeous, and if I can take the cover off very, very carefully, this is what it looks like on the inside. So this is behind the dust cover, and this is one of the few books with dust jackets where I am going to take such good care of this dust jacket. I cannot afford to damage it. It is so precious. I'm scared. Okay, I'm scared. I'm going to have to fix this. Okay. I'm really scared of damaging it. And I'll probably do a deep dive into this book for anyone who is interested in learning more specifically about kind of the intricacies of the inside of the book, as well as the history of this book and kind of how it came about. But the information on this one reads as follows. And it actually is written on the inside, which makes a nice change. I'm used to Troy books where they don't have any information inside at all. The Green Mysteries is a complete lexicon of the spiritual, magical, and occult properties of plants. Containing more than 400 individual entries, this occult herbal focuses especially upon plant power as an emanation of spirit, and how herbs are utilized in the active practices of magic and ritual. It includes trees and herbs from the Americas, as well as native European plants familiar to the students of the Western estoic tradition. Prepared with the modern occult practitioner and researcher in mind, it draws from diverse sources of herb lore, folk magic practice and myth, as well as religious and occult traditions. Interspersing the encyclopedic plant entries are short narratives addressing the spiritual dimensions of the vegetal world, the concept of wildness, and the practice of occult herbalism. Much of the material is also drawn directly from the author's experience working with the plants themselves. Many of the featured herbs also feature tables of correspondence, linking the plants to the gods, spirits, planetary attributions, and psychological states. As a further arena of investigation, some also feature a spirit retinue, a grouping of 13 personified attributes, virtues, and powers, demonstrating the plant's dominion of power within the human sphere. The text is also augmented with recipes and the Dream Book of Sylvanus, a short dream interpretation manual examining the significance of specific plants in dreams. The Green Mysteries is accompanied by over 300 original illustrations by artist Benjamin A. Llewellyn, I believe it's Llewellyn, prepared in collaboration specifically for this volume. Paying homage to the traditions of the European herbal, these faithful botanical renderings uniquely embody the viriditas of each herb, its sacred green power, as well as its magical character and arcana. This book's really heavy, I'm going to close it now. So this one is really, really interesting to me, and the illustrations are what make this so special to me, not just the content, but also the combination of the illustrations as well. Just a few examples in here. We have this one just here, which is absolutely stunning. And even just in the first small section of the book, just the very front pages, can we see how absolutely incredible that is? That is amazing to me. Now, I'm going to give this book a really good read, and I will let you know how I feel about it. Did I enjoy it? Did I not? I'm probably going to enjoy it, though, let's face it, it's right up my alley. But if anyone does want a deep dive into this book, where I'm going over different sections of the book, you can see the illustrations more closely and learn more about it, I'm happy to do that, because I'm painfully aware that this book is really hard to find. It's not accessible to most people. So if you would like more information on this book or any of the books I've spoken about in today's video, do let me know, and I will try to do breakdowns of the books that are not just review breakdowns that I do on Patreon, but kind of more in-depth breakdowns, so you can see whether a book is something that you would really be interested in from someone who's read that book, and we can go through different sections of it and the like, so do let me know. So those are all of the books and items that I got for my trip to Glastonbury. Is it a lot? Yes, I couldn't resist the Troy books. I've been looking for them for my collection for a long time, and so I kind of pre-prepared myself to be purchasing those books, but I found some really fascinating ones, and I'd love to know if you've read any of the books in this video. Do you recommend them? Do you like them? Let me know, and it'll help myself and others make better decisions about our book purchases going forwards. With that being said, thank you so much for watching this video. Thank you so much for continuing to support my content. Genuinely, making YouTube videos is a dream for me, and being able to talk about witchcraft books, which is so niche, and it's a topic I never thought I'd have an audience to be able to share this content with. It means a lot to me, and I love the fact that you love books as much as I do, and I will continue to share books for as long as I can, as long as people still like the content and they still want to see more books. So if you do enjoy this video, please give it a like. If you've got any questions or comments, feel free to leave them in the comment section, and if you do enjoy the magical content on this channel or in this video, feel free to hit subscribe. I try to post magical content every single week. So with that being said, I hope you're all staying safe. I hope you have a marvelous magical day, and I will see you in the next video. Bye!